It's Sunday, September 22, 2024. I am Lights Camera Jackson, and welcome to LCJ Live. We've got a surprise box office upset. Transformers 1 opened, but it's not number one. It's Transformers Not 1 this weekend as Beetlejuice three-peats with $26 million. Transformers 1, $25 million. Now, I am surprised, but there are reasons why this happened. We will get into that in a little bit. Coming up here on LCJ Live. If you're watching on YouTube Live, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube after the fact, thank you. Send in your questions and your comments as I pull up the feed right here, right now. What do you think? Did you see Transformers 1? See, I saw it 8 days ago. I was at one of those pay nationwide early access screenings that Paramount did nationwide, and the crowd was so into it. There were more than 100 people. There were tons of kids. They were getting the popcorn buckets with the Transformers heads on them. You got the little free chain here of Bumblebee, and everybody was so into it, and I really enjoyed the film. It's my favorite animated movie of the year so far. I still got to see Wild Robot, Piece by Piece, Moana 2, Memoir of a Snail, Flow. There's Spellbound, That Christmas, Wallace and Gromit. There's a lot of other animated movies left this year, but so far this year, my number one is Transformers 1. So what happened? Why did Transformers 1 only open to $25 million? And why is it not number one this weekend? Clearly, the Beetlejuice fans went week one and may wanted to see it again, or other people who didn't get a chance to see it. We're getting a little closer to Halloween, though we're still far away. By the way, I have my Batman shirt on because I watched the first episode of The Penguin last night on Max. I will get to my thoughts on The Penguin here coming up on LCJ Live. So I thought, based on this screening I went to, wow, everybody's really into this. It's director Josh Cooley, who won an Oscar for Toy Story 4. It's action-packed. It's got the comedy. It's got the emotion. It's another animated film franchise starter for Paramount. So what happened? Maybe it's because of the Wild Robot also opening next weekend, and DreamWorks and Universal doing a massive marketing campaign with all the glowing reviews for the Wild Robot. Maybe there are some families who say, I'm going to wait and see the Wild Robot instead. Or there are also families who say, I'm going to wait and see Transformers 1 when my kids don't have sports this weekend, or there aren't activities that we're doing outside. Up here in the Northeast, a beautiful weekend. So maybe a lot of families just didn't want to go indoors. I think there are some people, as was the case with the first Spider-Verse movie, which opened to $35 million, totaled $190. The buzz and the momentum grew on the first Spider-Verse. Of course, the second Spider-Verse opened to $120 and totaled $381. For adults who are still hesitant, the adult fans of Transformers, to try this new CG animated movie, even though it's excellent, even though it's very, very good, and the audience and the critic reactions across the board are very strong, there still might be some adult fans of the Transformers franchise who maybe don't want to see another animated version and maybe are concerned that it's not going to be very good. Trust me, it is good, it is strong, and I think Paramount hoped, and they still do hope, that this is another franchise starter for them, like the SpongeBob franchise, the Paw Patrol franchise, Ninja Turtles, and the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, live-action CGI combo. Paramount wants all of these to go for several years. When I came out of this screening of Transformers 1, I thought, wow, we're going to get another one of these in 3 years, and maybe another one 3 years after that. They have to be disappointed today. When the actual results are released tomorrow, you could see Transformers 1 rise up and Beetlejuice rise down. So Transformers could end up number one, but there's a very good chance that's not going to happen. I think Paramount is very surprised today. The back-to-back family movie situation, this is what Paramount had back in May. They opened If to $35 million, number one, on May 17. The following weekend, Sony had the Garfield movie, which opened to $24.8 million, pretty much even with Transformers 1. Garfield totaled 92. It had some legs over the next several weeks. If totaled, about 110, a little bit more than that. So it did a little bit better than Garfield. But you had that back-to-back. It was Paramount and Sony. This time it's Paramount and Universal with the Wild Robot this coming weekend. A lot of buzz for the Wild Robot, that it could be the best animated feature of the year. could beat Inside Out 2 at the Oscars and all the award shows. Again, it's so early to tell what's going to happen when it comes to that, but our family's waiting for that. You've also got the Columbus Indigenous Peoples Day coming up in October, which is usually a good day for animated and family films, for families to do something, to go to the theaters. That weekend is also the release of Piece by Piece, the Pharrell Williams Lego animated film, which I think will do all right. Maybe not these numbers because it is a documentary. It is a unique concept for a lot of families and a lot of people to get behind, but it'll do a little bit. So you've technically got 3 animated films that are going to be there for that Monday, October holiday for families and theaters, plus all these weekends leading up to that. Alternative options when Joker comes out on October the 4th. And we've also got Whitebird, which I have seen. It's not going to bring in families like Wonder did, so they're going to want to see animated films. Is that money getting split? We also had last November, remember, we had Trolls Band Together from DreamWorks Universal, and then Disney's Wish opened just 5 days later. Trolls Band Together did not do nearly as well as the first Trolls, and Wish bombed. Wish made less money than Paw Patrol the Mighty Movie. That's right, that made 65, Wish made 64. And now, of course, Jennifer Lee is no longer the CCO at Disney Animation. She is stepping down to work on Frozen 3 and 4, and Jared Bush, who did Zootopia, is taking over. So it's really interesting that a lot of studios wanted to put a lot of animated and family films right up against each other pretty much. And in the case of Transformers 1, I think Paramount, I thought this could do at least 30, 35 million, even more. If everyone who went to see Rise of the Beasts, plus younger kids who didn't go to that, going to Transformers 1, Rise of the Beasts last June, I believe, opened to $60 million. This did 25. Wow. It is underwhelming. Paramount is surprised today. They had a decent summer with If and A Quiet Place Day 1. Coming up is Smile 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Gladiator 2, and a couple other films for Paramount for the rest of the year, including awards contenders. But wow, I think they're a little puzzled today on why this did not do better. So if you are hesitant about seeing Transformers 1, go see it. It is worth your time. It is good, and I do recommend it. Number 3 this weekend is Speak No Evil, which added 5.9 million. It's at 21.5. By the way, Beetlejuice is at 226.9. If it gets to 283, it will beat Dune Part 2 to become the biggest movie of the year for Warner Brothers. I'm not sure it's going to get there. It depends on how long Warner wants to keep it in theaters. Number 4 this weekend, another flop for Lionsgate. Another week, another flop for Lionsgate. Never Let Go, the Halle Berry thriller drama, which to me looked like a Quiet Place ripoff. Only $4.5 million. Number 5, Deadpool and Wolverine, which in its 9th weekend, I believe, added 3.9 million. It's at 627.3. Number 6 is The Substance, which opened to 3.1 million, which all things considered is pretty good. It's a film from Mubi, a studio that really doesn't put a lot of things out nationwide out of the gate. And it's a film that is wild and crazy, and Demi Moore is excellent, Margaret Qualley and Dennis Quaid. I have some issues with the story. There are a couple problems I have at specific moments of why certain things needed to happen. Again, this is a movie that, shoves reality out the door and brings in fantasy and horror and comedy and does so much, and the last act is a little much. It goes a little too far. I have some story issues, but for the most part, it is memorable, it is effective, it is unique, and the style of it is pretty strong. I like the cinematography, the costume design, the editing, the music. It's style-wise, it's very good, and performance-wise, it's very good. Story, it falls a little short in places, but it's... I wasn't sure what to expect, and as it was going on, I wasn't sure what to expect, and then after the movie was over for the next couple hours, I found more little things to like about it, that my grade of it went from like a soft C plus to a solid B minus for The Substance. It's not amazing, but I like a good amount of it. Number 7 this weekend is the documentary Am I Racist, which had a $2.5 million. It's at $9 million. Number 8, Reagan, another Dennis Quaid movie. 2 Dennis Quaid movies in the top 10 this weekend. Reagan added 1.9 million. It's at 26.8. Number 9 is Young Cook, I Am Still, with 1.4 million, a 5-day of 2.6. And number 10 is Alien Romulus, which added 1.3. It's at 103.6. Right behind that as well, The Forge with 1.3. It Ends With Us added a million. Waiting for the money on the Christopher Reeve documentary Superman, which was released yesterday through Fathom Events and Warner Brothers. It screens again nationwide on Wednesday. I came out of the documentary a little cold on it. And what I mean by that is this. I think it's an inspirational story. There's some good at-home footage, a few interesting interview sound bites here and there, but it's a very straightforward documentary. It's a very informational documentary. It's more informational than the impact of it emotionally. And like many documentaries recently, the ending is rushed. I don't understand why a lot of documentarians think that, okay, we've got this big story. I felt this way about the Martha Stewart documentary coming to Netflix as well. We tell all this, we say all this, and then the modern day impact and what's happened since the certain key events in the person's life, what has happened since, kind of gets just thrown in there for 30 seconds at the end, and then we're done. You have to follow through fully, just like a narrative film. You have to follow through on an ending that gets you. And the ending of the Superman documentary doesn't get you. We don't see how, 20 years after his death, Christopher Reeve's impact on the medical community, on the movie making community, on heroism in the world in 2024, we do not see that. We get some interesting stories about the making of 1978 Superman, but there have been so many Superman and DC movies since, and DC was behind this documentary. Why not get Zack Snyder, who I spoke to the other day? Check out that interview at lcj.podbean.com. Why don't you get Zack Snyder? Why don't you get some of the people who have made Superman films and shows and other things since then to talk about how Christopher Reeve's influence still exists in the Superman world to this day? But they don't do that at all. They don't follow through, the filmmakers of this documentary, on that at all, which disappointed me. And we don't get a lot about 2024. We get a little bit with his children. Will Reeve works at ABC and Good Morning America, and we see him for 5 seconds walking with someone and doing a story. But there should have been more than that. There should have been more of what Christopher Reeve means to people in 2024. And the movie just sort of ends, and you go, you told the story, which most people probably know most of the beats of the story. And then you don't give us a lot of the real reason why in 2024 we are doing this film on Christopher Reeve. So it left me a little cold. Not one of the great documentaries of 2024. Again, an inspirational story. Christopher Reeve, what an impact on the world at the time, but we don't really see that in the documentary in 2024. I think the filmmakers missed that. So we're waiting for the money for that. The Killers Game added $1 million. It's at 4.8. A Different Man opened in 4 theaters to 56,000. It goes wide October 4. My Old Ass expanded 282,000 this weekend. It's at about $500,000. My Old Ass goes nationwide this Friday. Wolves was in about 50 theaters. We don't have the money for that. It's on Apple TV Plus this Friday. I will be checking it out once they make screeners available to members of the press. And the re-release of Whiplash did about $600,000 in a little less than 700 theaters. And I think that's the money I got. Phantomator 101, Transformers 1 was so good. Now I can't wait for the Wild Robot this week. Here comes the Wild Robot. Now, because Transformers opened so low, and because Beetlejuice is only at 26 million, can the Wild Robot have a number 1 open? For some reason, the number 17 million has been in my head. But the Wild Robot could do less than that. It could do more than that. If it does $17 million, the Wild Robot has a shot at number 1. But if it only does about 10 or 12, then DreamWorks and Universal are going to be disappointed, hoping the word of mouth is good to have it have decent legs for several weeks. And then you're looking at another battle between Transformers and Beetlejuice. I mean, at this point, we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting to have another big animated movie open right after one that underwhelmed. Megalopolis also opens this week. It is Francis Ford Coppola's film. The tracking is 5 million. Lionsgate has had a bad run at the box office. Here comes Megalopolis, and then Whitebird is the next week. I'll have more thoughts on Whitebird a little closer to release. Lee opens this week. It's the Kate Winslet drama. I have seen it. Look for my thoughts on that tomorrow across my social media platforms. In limited release on Friday is Saturday Night, which is the new SNL movie, which opens in New York, LA, and Toronto. It expands the next weekend and goes wide October 11th. Horror film called Azrael, documentary called Vindicating Trump, open up. Robbie says, I can't believe Beetlejuice won the weekend. I know. I am very surprised. What are you guessing the domestic total for Megalopolis? 15? If it gets to 20? Unless the curiosity factor is really there and people want to go, but I don't know. I don't think it gets to 20 million, but we'll see. I want to mention Friends. Happy 30th birthday to Friends. This is a word search book that I've had. Happy 30th to one of the great sitcoms of all time. And before we go, let me talk about The Penguin. I watched episode 1 last night. Boy, is it slow. Now, I've heard that things get better in episodes 3 and 4 and beyond. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can stick with this. You know, even if you make something that's only 8 episodes, especially if you make something that's only 8 episodes, you've got to come out of the gate swinging. And when it's just chatty conversation after chatty conversation between Colin Farrell as the Penguin and all these other characters in different locations, like, oh my gosh. You know, we have about 7 minutes worth of material stretched out to 67. Now, it doesn't mean you need a crazy action scene. There's a little car chase in the first episode, but not much. It doesn't mean you need a crazy action scene to get things going. It just means you need some intensity. And that doesn't always mean dialogue or wacky music choices or offbeat comedy, which they try a couple times. So, yeah, I feel like this Penguin show is misguided, and why can't we just have the Batman Part 2 already? We're still 2 full years away from the Batman Part 2, October 2 of 2026. So, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to give the Penguin another shot. Scott Stallion, are you seeing Megalopolis in IMAX this week? I don't know. Probably not. I think the Wild Robot's in IMAX near me, which was also weird. Remember when Wild Robot took the 27th and then Lionsgate intentionally put Megalopolis on the 27th but IMAX, but the Wild Robot was already in IMAX? I don't know. Yeah, a little weird. So we'll see what happens. When I do see Wolves, I'll let you know my thoughts on Wolves. Wild Robot I will be seeing this week. I think Megalopolis this week. My thoughts on Lee are coming tomorrow. If you want my review of Too Fast, Two Films podcast review of Transformers 1 plus The Critic with Ian McKellen, go to toofast2films.com. As I mentioned, Zack Snyder, one of the visionary superhero and dramatic action movie filmmakers of our time. I talk with him, Deborah Snyder, and Wesley Collar about their new Netflix animated show, Twilight of the Gods. Look for that, animationscoop.com, and listen to that podcast episode now at lcj.podbean.com. Tomorrow, new Animation Scoop Q&A, an LCJ Q&A podcast episode with Matt Selman, 7-time Emmy winner for The Simpsons. It's the 350th episode of the LCJ Q&A podcast. We talk about the new season. We talk about the New York Comic Con panel and what to expect on Disney Plus from The Simpsons this year. It's a great conversation coming at you tomorrow. Scott Stallion, Adam Tickets has a promo for free Megalopolis tickets. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay, I'm going to look into that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes with other carriers and other things, Fandango, Adam, they do free tickets and things. Are they really giving away free tickets to Megalopolis? That is not a good sign then. Oh my goodness. All right. Olivia, predict Megaflopolis box office. Megaflopolis. There you go. We've got Megaflopolis and Transformers Not One. What a weekend for the box office. Yeah, we'll see how Megalopolis does. I'm thinking 5 million. That's about where we're at with some of these Lionsgate movies-ish lately. And the Wild Robot, again, 17 is in my head, but we'll see if it does more than that. If it does do 17 million, I think that's a #1 spot for the Wild Robot. Thanks for being here for today's episode of LCJ Live. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to lights-camera-jackson.com and X at LCJ Reviews, Instagram at LightsCamJackson. Appreciate your time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching the show. And I'll see you next Sunday with Wild Robot Box Office. which could be wild, and we'll preview Joker, Folie à Deux, White Bird, and more. Take care. Bye bye.